I'd like to welcome to the studio today Gene Holzer, CEO of Ascendo Resources. Welcome.
Thank you, Oscar.
Gene, on behalf of the Entrepreneurs Organization South Florida chapter, I'd like to congratulate you for earning a prestigious ranking on the 2014 Inc. 5,000 fastest growing privately held companies in the United States. How did you do it, and tell us a little bit about Ascendo Resources.
Sure. Well, it was some journey, let me tell you. But in terms of Ascendo Resources, we specialize in the placement of accounting, finance, financial services, HR, and IT professionals in both temporary as well as direct hire positions. In terms of the journey, it's blood, sweat, and tears. Started out on a kitchen table, calling former clients, building it brick by brick, hiring at the right time, being aggressive, but taking calculated risk at the same time.
So many entrepreneurs I've spoken to over the years, including myself. I started one of my businesses in my bedroom. Mm-hmm. You started in your kitchen. What motivated you to launch your business?
Sure. Well, having worked in corporate America for over 10 years, you get a sense of the landscape, how your individual voice or opinion is not heard very well. At some point you decide, I think I have a sense of this business. I think I have the solution. There's a need in the marketplace. And in terms of the recruiting, staffing space, Ascendo Resources is really based on relationships, building those long-term relationships with both our client companies as well as our candidates. And I think that's what differentiates us from our competitors.
When you launched your business, did you have a detailed business plan?
We did not. I would say that we had more. I had a co-founder as well. We started the business together. I think we had a lot of ideas in our head.
Okay.
We did put some in paper, but in terms of those MBA classes, we did not generate a 20-page document on what needed to be done. Now, prior to opening up Ascendo Resources, we had done executive recruitment with some national firms, so we gained the experience and knowledge of the industry already. So we were able to kind of apply the things that we liked and that we learned and liked from those companies, and then put our own little spin in terms of the relationship piece and the customer service piece that lacks in our industry.
So, absent of business plan, but full of fantastic and exciting ideas, mm-hmm. How has reality differed from those initial set of ideas?
Not that much. A lot of the values that we started out with, we've maintained. Now Ascendo Resources has 8 offices from New York, Atlanta, Charlotte, 5 in Florida, including Tampa, Orlando, West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami. And we really institute those same values that we started out when there were 2, 3, 4 of us, and now there are 70 recruiters within the organization. So it's those same customer service, working on getting the perfect pairing between the client company as well as the candidate. So it really hasn't changed.
Do you remember your first client?
I do.
How did you get them?
It was a referral from an individual I had worked with in the past, an individual out of Miami that I had placed in a position years ago. And she contacted me and said, I need an accountant. I need a temporary accountant. And I said, well, I'm on my own now. She had called my cell phone. She didn't know where I was, and we had just started the business maybe a few days earlier. So it was just the right timing, right place, right time.
Is your business...
Oh, let me interject. I'm
Please.
sorry, one other thing. I still have the checks, the first 2 checks we received, and that was one of the clients. I still have a photocopy of the checks kind of sitting right on my desk. So it's a lot of good memories.
That's
from
great.
Back in those times.
Does that motivate you or inspire you?
It reminds me, it's as if you're in your house and you have old photographs of when you were younger or your children were babies. You just look at that and say, I remember when, that first check was so valuable, and it just kind of gives you that, it re-energizes you.
Sure. When now you have 8 offices and mm-hmm. your business is very much, I'm assuming, a very touchy-feely, relationship-based business. Mm-hmm. Am I relatively correct?
Sure.
Have you lost any of that with having so many offices?
Well, perhaps I've lost a little bit on the individual level, because now I have to put the mindset of I'm a business owner. I'm not necessarily an executive recruiter 24/7. So I still have clients that I interact with that certainly I service. But now my role specifically is more about growing the business and working with our managers and our sales team in terms of providing that customer service to their customers. So a lot of times I'll go with some of our salespeople on some client meetings, and I'll kind of be backup support and do some trainings behind the scenes. So that's how kind of the role has changed.
When you make recommendations to staff positions for some of your clients, is that process of matching the right person with the right position, is that more of an art or more of a science?
It's a little bit of both. So there is definitely a certain science of you need to be competitive in terms of your compensation. You need to have, if you're hiring for somebody, you need to have a thorough job description plan. Sometimes managers don't realize that they need to get approval to hire somebody. So there's certain things. Now the art is where you're acting as a counselor. You really are acting as a go-between. They may say, I want these 10 items, and you as a recruiting professional really have to narrow that down to 3 key points and explain to them the nuance that maybe candidate A might not have exactly what they're looking for, but there's certain attributes that person has that's going to make them more of a successful long-term employee. So it's a little bit of both. You have to mix and match.
Okay. How did you finance the launch of your business?
We didn't. Interesting, I frequently tell the story that when we received the tax ID for the company, it was in September 2008. It was the same day that Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy. So I remember turning to my wife, who was home with the kids, and I said, not the best time to open up a business. We really weren't able to take out a lot of money in the business. We put a little bit of money into the business, but then we used our savings essentially, and made sure we met payroll and those important things that entrepreneurs have to focus on, and then then all of a sudden things start catching up. As your sales increase, and it gets a little easier.
Your company has experienced explosive growth. Was there a need to finance the growth of your business?
There really hasn't. We've been self-funded, from the start. Recently, as we've become more successful, of course, that's when the bankers start coming to you and saying, "Here's some funds."
Sure.
And we've taken advantage of that at this point. So that we'll probably use that for our next stage of growth. But when you start a business in 2008, 2009, banks are not interested in loaning you money to a brand new business, if people remember. And I also remember at the time I had some equity in the home, and I remember getting letters saying, well, your line of credit is no longer open. So that was really, when you start out a business, you really have to budget your personal finances. You
Sure.
might have to change your lifestyle, eat some ramen noodles, so to speak, and really pave the way for the long-term success.
Yeah. My food of choice was macaroni and cheese.
Okay, great.
In the early days. What was the toughest decision you ever had to make since the launch of your business?
A lot of our toughest decisions come down to personnel. We're really a team, family-based recruiting firm, which is different than other firms. Our competitors are a little bit more of a Shark Tank, and we're a lot more family-friendly. The last 2 years, we've been named by Florida Trend magazine as best places to work for. And we don't look at it, I don't refer to our staff as employees, they're really colleagues. So it's difficult when you have someone that's not performing at acceptable standards and to let them go, especially if they've been with you, for a little while. And so we try to give people as much time and we have as much patience as we can, but at the end of the day, we are running a business. So I'd say that's always the challenge is, counseling people out, letting people go.
You obviously have a very, very successful business, and I think you're an absolutely highly competent entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I'd like to make an investment in your business. I'd like to invest $1 million into your company. Mm-hmm. How would you deploy those funds?
We would use those resources really for expansion, looking for new markets. I mentioned earlier we're in eight different cities, and we have multiple lines of business, accounting and finance and IT and banking. We'd probably use those to grow some of those newer cities, New York City, Central Florida, which have been recent investments. and target, other thriving cities across the country. It's really the success of Ascendo and the individuals there are about finding the right people. And how do you get the right people? You have to compensate the right people
Sure.
and attract them. And I think that's how we would leverage those resources if you're willing to give us, sure.
Well, listen, today's your lucky day. You not only get $1 million, but you're going to get some magical powers.
Okay.
And with those powers, you now have the ability of going all the way back to day one of your business, all the way up to current. You have the ability, unique ability, of reversing any one decision that you ever made. What would that be?
Interesting. That's a difficult question for me in the sense that I don't live a lot in regrets. I know that we've made mistakes. There are people that we've hired. There are multiple people that we've hired that wound up being disasters. So I would say some of those individuals that we provided a short-term investment for, without naming names, I would go back and say, don't hire that person. But other than that, we really, or myself, I live for the moment and look to the future. So I don't really focus on or dwell on the mistakes that I made. We've learned from those mistakes, but we just keep moving forward and try not to repeat those mistakes. Try to look for those signals that maybe, hey, remember when that happened, let's not do that again.
All right, I heard a word in there that you said was future. You look towards the future. In your last remaining moments of magical powers, let's fast forward 5 years. How has the business climate changed, and what is that going to do to your business 5 years from today?
Sure. Difficult to predict, obviously, business climates. In our industry, it's very volatile based on the economy and the job market. So my expectation over the next 5 years is more job growth in probably the next 2 to 3 years, and probably a slowdown in some. One thing I can guarantee you is that there will be another slowdown. There will be another recession. Though that's what happens. So I just don't know when. We don't know when when that's going to happen. So we have to be poised and ready and have the right team in place. But I would say, from a financial standpoint, next year we're looking at revenues probably in the 25 million range. 5 years from now, we want that to be 100 million. So that's where our goals are. That's where I would expect us to be in that 5-6 year time frame. You can't control outside events. There's wars and other horrible events that will affect and normal recessions. But outside of that, that's where I expect we'll be.
And I'm sure you're going to make it as well. What one word describes Gene Holzer as an entrepreneur?
Hard work.
That was 2 words.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Hard-work.
Do you think entrepreneurs are born or made?
I think they can be both. Myself, I was definitely not born an entrepreneur. I came out of corporate America. I worked for some of the largest companies in various roles. That's who I thought I wanted to be. I think I learned some life lessons from my father, who also was in corporate America and then was let go after 30 plus years with a watch, and a little bit of severance. And he had to turn it around and build a business from nowhere and created a very successful business. And now he's happily retired and doing well. So I think there was some of that life learning. But for myself personally, never really had the entrepreneurial bug. Just kind of fell into it, but once I got a taste of it, I'm not letting it go.
Good for you. Who do you go to today if you're looking to brainstorm an idea or problem solve or just look for overall general guidance or advice? Who's your go-to person or team?
Well, we have partners at Ascendo Resources. We're set up in that structure, so we make a lot of decisions with either 2, 4, maybe even more people involved in decision making. One thing I know is that I don't know everything. So I can't live on an island. I have to work with my colleagues and make some decisions, run things by them, and we do that to each other. It keeps us in check. So it's not one person, it's a committee, so to speak.
Okay. You're a leader. Great leaders are always learning. What is your source, your primary source of knowledge?
For me, it's probably a combination of just experience, life experience, work experience. Certainly, I read. I read financial information. I read what's going on, stock market and so forth. I do have an MBA, so I am classically trained in business. But I'd say the biggest factor is definitely, day to day. You pick up something new from people around you. And don't be afraid to take people's ideas, Not steal, just take. And tell them you're taking it. Like, great idea, good, I'm using it. So I do that all the time.
Isn't that the highest form of flattery?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So as a business leader, how do you make a mark either in your business or in your community?
Well, we do a lot. We've actually, in the last couple of years, gotten much more involved in the community. We work with an organization called Feeding South Florida, and they are a part of a national chapter of making sure that those that are food deprived are getting meals, and that ranges from the elderly, the homeless, or young children. So we get very involved in their events. Actually, they had kind of a contest back in the beginning part of the year called the Hunger Games. And Ascendo was right in there. We won the Hunger Games. We won the award. It was a combination of doing a food sort and collecting cans in the office and donating, financial donation. There was a race, a 5K race. So all those things. And it's not just giving back to the community, but we also feel like that's part of our family culture internally. That's what makes it interesting, is that we do things as an organization outside of work. It's not just about the numbers. It's about, getting to know each other, bonding. Our offices are very excited about Halloween. We have our own internal Halloween contest. The different offices compete against each other on what themes that they've come up with. So there'll be pictures of that on social media. So we like to do those kind of things. But certainly Feeding South Florida has been a big thing for us, and we really enjoy partnering up with them.
Great. What do you think the boldest move or decision you ever made in your professional life?
Well, certainly to start Ascendo Resources, to become one of the co-founders, leaving a steady income, being the primary breadwinner of my family. That was by far, putting the chips on the line and saying, you know what, I'm going to do this. But as a business owner, those decisions evolve, and there's some, expanding into other markets. We were first a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago. We were just in South Florida. We just had 3 offices, and we were doing well. And we were gaining market share, and we were very profitable, and all those good things. And then, but are you satisfied with that? And we made the bold decision. Let's go outside of the market. Let's build and develop teams that we don't see every day. So that's definitely was a big, bold, a business decision, and we're cashing in on it right now.
Good for you. Good. So, if I say the words trust and respect, what does that mean to you?
Well, whether it be for business or personal reasons, those are 2 of the key words that I look at, as a human being on this planet, right? We always talk in the office about relationships, and if people can't trust that your word is your bond, and that what you say is what you're going to do, then it's not really, your word is not really worth anything. And how are you going to have that long-term relationship without trust? I think respect is something that I hold very high, and I think it's earned. You need to prove yourself to people every day in what you do. And again, I find those 2 values for both business and personal very important.
Final question. Tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up, and just for a moment, I want you to pretend that your business is no longer in existence. What's the next greatest mountain you're going to climb?
Well, I would certainly look for another opportunity. I would now. Do I have some money in my bank account at this point?
Of course.
Okay.
You're a
all right.
successful
So
entrepreneur.
I'm a successful entrepreneur. So I may do a little traveling in the short term, but I'm sure I'd want to get back on that horse and find another opportunity somewhere. But it would be measured. It wouldn't be right away. I would definitely take some time to think about it. But I love what I'm doing now, so I hope that doesn't happen tomorrow.
And where would you travel, by the way?
Europe, Asia, everywhere.
Great, great. It's been an absolute pleasure having you in our studio today. Again, on behalf of EO South Florida, congratulations. You have a tremendously successful company. Your ranking on the Inc. list is well-deserved, and thank you so much for helping to spur the entrepreneurial spirit in South Florida. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.